Play.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Cardinal trade deadline, is likely to be really boring. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Vince Morgan.
Hey, Nathan.
If you have an idea for the opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. Hello, Benjamin, Hambone, Samorka.
Oh, wow.
How are you today?
Hello there. I'm fantastic. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah. Just stopping by for a little chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh,
What a surprise.
I didn't know you were coming today.
Why don't you sit down and get comfortable? Pop
Put
those
down my
shoes
book.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually not wearing any shoes right now. I like to.
Come on. Don't tell me that.
You have no idea what's going on below this shirt.
Disgusting. I thought we were going to have a fun show today. You immediately.
That's what you get.
Ruined it. Yeah.
Yeah. You went to a game recently. How was that?
I went to the Rockies versus the Bo Sox death match here at Coors Field on Monday night. It was good. It was the most popular Rockies game I've been to since opening day. I think there are secretly a lot of Bostonians.
I mean, Boston's having a pretty good year, but I wouldn't think they would draw more than, say, the Dodgers or something like that.
It was kind of wild. I think maybe there's a factor of like the Red Sox not coming here very often.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
That would indicate there's actual baseball fans though in Denver. I've always assumed the way you've always pitched it is more like this is a fun party environment to go to for people.
People were locked in, and there were a lot of them there. It was a good game. The Rockies, it went to 12 innings. It was the longest baseball game I've been to since the rule changes.
Yeah.
And some people were into that, and some people were not into that. But I was really into it. It's a very exciting game. If you go back and look at the box score of the Rockies-Boston Red Sox game Monday night, back and forth, home runs. Sam Hilliard comes up to hit a tying home run to push it into extra innings. If anybody remembers Sam Hilliard, he was a once great Rocky who never panned out, and now he's back. They always come back.
They always come back.
Something I thought you might be excited. Have I talked to you about this new creation at the Rocky Stadium?
No, I don't think so.
I got two quick food updates that I need to let you in on.
Okay.
So first off, we sat in a different part of the ballpark than we normally sit, and I walked into. I found a new nacho place.
A new nacho.
I've been going to the stadium for 10 years plus.
Yeah.
I just found a new nacho place.
Is it a new nacho place, or you just discovered it?
I think I just discovered it.
Wow.
But I saw this sign that said like they were selling nachos. There's like a bar that exists inside. It's like a totally separate bar, but you can go in there and get like pub nachos. And boy, oh boy, I was having a great time on those.
Pub nacho, so like a baked nacho instead of like a loose cheese nacho, if that makes sense? Or how would you define a pub nacho?
I was more thinking like I went into a pub and ordered nachos in the style of that pub. Like it wasn't like traditional Mexican fare. Okay. It was a little more, Anglo angled nachos. But I don't know why.
As opposed to the cultural touchstone of nacho cheese and a little, poured over tortilla chips with ground beef all over it.
I mean, I think it's a little more Mexican when it's like you have your like pico de gallo.
Sure.
You have your jalapenos, so on and so forth.
So I'm intrigued. I'm deeply intrigued.
Yeah.
But I'm struggling to see like what was really different about these nachos?
It was build your own. You could do pulled pork. You could do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It was fantastic. But Nate, you're not letting me get to the thing I actually want to talk about.
Okay. Proceed, Governor.
The Colorado Rockies have a new food item. Ooh. And I was unable to get it because the line was out the door.
Like out the door of the stadium, like down.
It was
What's that?
Halfway down Blake Street. There were
Blake Street.
people that weren't even in the stadium that were ordering this thing. It was out of
Wow.
control.
What is it?
It is
Probably like a weed hot dog or something.
It is vanilla ice cream that has been molded and shaped into a pile of spaghetti, and then it is surrounded by
What a twist.
chocolate donut holes that are supposed to look like spaghetti and meatballs. It's called polar pasta.
Why? I mean, this sounds great, of course, but also this is horrible. So, when you say the ice cream is shaped like spaghetti, are
Yeah.
you saying it's like a soft serve pile, or is it actually like thin, like thin in a way a spaghetti noodle would be?
So it's like it looks like the ice cream was pressed into a mold and the exterior of the mold looks like a pile of spaghetti, but it's got all
Ah,
the nooks and crannies and everything like that.
but it's one big piece though. You couldn't like go in and pull up like a string of ice cream.
I don't think that's how ice cream works. I don't think you
Well,
can
that's
pull
what I'm thinking, like, if they use, like, the Dippin' Dot technology,
Yeah.
to create, like, ice
Yeah.
cream that can sort of sit on itself, but use that to make long tubes, maybe you could do, like, a spaghetti ice cream. I'm just trying to make sure I understand it correctly. So it's one chunk of ice cream that's been, like, pressed to look like a pile of spaghetti.
I just sent you on Slack a picture of what we're looking at just so you have a
Great for the
visualization.
podcast.
But
Oh my
yeah.
god.
And so it's got like strawberry sauce and then chocolate donut holes around it, and it looks like an abomination.
It does. It almost looks like blood. The This sounded great till I looked at it. Now this looks horrible.
Yeah, yeah.
So how long did you wait for one?
Unfortunately, I did not. But next time I go on a game that's maybe less crowded, I could not believe the crowds.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody was getting their polar pasta.
Yeah,
So
you gotta get a polar
that's I
pasta.
have an aspiration now. I have a reason to wake up in the morning. I have a reason to go back to
Good.
Coors Field.
That's good.
So I will obviously this is my beat now. I will report on this as soon as I have some more information and a follow up. But I'm ordering that shit and I'm gonna take it to the dome. It's gonna be um uncomfortable, I'm sure, because it kind of is a lot of ice cream.
It
Also,
is a lot of ice cream. Ice cream is always to me is a risky play at like a public event like that where you're
yeah.
outside and it's likely hot. And I don't know. It seems like, I mean, I know I get nachos, which are the sloppiest thing you can get, but ice cream feels like an even more like sloppy affair that is just going to make you
I don't know
uh
what about a plate full of ice cream in the shape of spaghetti makes you think sloppy, Nate. We are just not aligned on this.
it looks pretty bad, honestly. I mean, I bet it tastes great because it's basically just an ice cream sundae with with chocolate
Yeah.
cake on it. But yeah, that looks horrible. The little flag on it is there's an Aramark flag. Do you think they serve that, or is that just um for the for the press photo
You
here?
know, I don't know. Again,
Yeah,
I will follow this story down. I will do the work. I will
yeah.
be on the ground and in line
Wow.
ordering. I'll report back as soon as possible.
Yeah, we need a live picture because
Yeah.
the thing that I'm thinking too is that the if this is what it looks like when they're in their presentation of a press photo, like this is its ideal form. There's no way it looks even a third as put together as this. So
Well, yeah,
it
and it's like it's one of those things, like, do you want the ice cream to have more of a yellow tone so it looks more like pasta, or is that just even more disgusting?
yeah, probably worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I demand you go and get one for the good of the show.
Yes, sir.
You said it was the longest game you've been to in person. I think we're
Yeah.
both pretty. I like, in my opinion, the free runner on second is the worst change that baseball's made in all the rule changes. Most of them I can sort of it's
Yeah.
whatever, it's fine, it's not for me, but that's the worst one, I think. And I really am not. I'm not for it in any capacity other than if you completely forget about um, you know having a good competition
Yeah.
and the result being the best team wins. If you don't care about any of that and you're in the stadium, it can be kind of fun, right? So were you like locked in maybe more than you would have been in an extra innings game?
Yeah, I guess so. Especially like obviously the Rockies are the underdog, and this rule really helps the home team.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was being appreciated. What was funny though is I was surrounded by a bunch of Red Sox fans, and these like very drunk older couple I was having to explain the rules to because why is that guy? Why is that Rocky out there? I was like, well,
Yeah.
you may have missed it, but the other inning was started with Jaron Duran at second base, and it's working for both teams. The Rockies
Yeah.
didn't like sneak a player onto second base without
Got
or
him.
anyone noticing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you. I was reveling in the fact that we had a 12 inning game, that
Uh-huh.
I was in the ballpark for a little over 3.5 hours. That is my shit.
Yeah.
That is why I'm here. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I think I fully agree with you. I think it's probably the worst rule. I think it is an unfair advantage, and it kind of breaks the game. It's like you're just playing a different game for the
Yeah.
most important part, the highest leverage part of the game. Um,
Yeah. Have I
so
told you my what I think they should do? And this is part bit, but also part true. I think it's such a crapshoot and such a fundamental change to the concept of baseball, having you allow the inning to start with a runner on second, that they should just stop at all trying to make it a representation of baseball. And if we're going to do something like that, let's just go peak entertainment value, and we should take a note from some other sports and where they'll do like penalty kicks. Let's just do home run derby. If a game's gonna go past the ninth inning, 5 pitches, whoever hits the most home runs wins the game. Why not? That would be even more fun than the runner starting on second, as much a crapshoot as the runner starting on second. And let's
so
just go all in on making this dumb as hell because it's
uh,
already stupid.
in this stupid scenario you've just concocted, is this like the team is pitching to their own player so that they
Yeah.
can hit a home run? Because like if you had a home run derby against a team's closer, it would almost result in
No, it's
no one
home
ever
run
hitting home
derby.
runs.
You're getting like you got a dad on staff, you know what I
Your
mean?
third base coach comes out and soft
Yeah.
tosses to
Stubby
your
Clapp
slugger.
is
Yeah.
tossing to Nolan Gorman, you know? Uh,
This might be the dumbest idea you've ever had.
yeah, but it's equally dumb as having a runner start on second, and it's way
But
more fun.
but like with a shootout in hockey or footy, there's an actual competition. It's 1v1. There's a challenge going on. In
Sure.
this scenario that you're proposing, it's just like,
Raw
okay, I
strength,
doinked five
baby.
dongs. Okay, now you doink five dongs. Oh, he
Hell
missed.
yeah.
There's just no competition.
Sure, but it's as much so is the runner starting on second. It's so stupid and undercuts the entire 9 innings you played before.
I'm not
So
disagreeing, but it's more competitive than what you just offered. I
I'm just
believe
saying
that,
if we're making these changes for the sake of like peak entertainment and get the
yeah,
game over, let's go all in on peak entertainment. And what's more fun than a derby?
yeah. Um,
It'll never
okay.
happen. I know that this is an insane idea, but
I
like,
would rather it like if we're gonna have this stupid zombie runner thing, I would rather it be like it kicks in at the 12th inning,
well, totally. The
or just move it
actual
back further.
Yeah, I think the actual answer is 10th inning is normal. It's just another inning. 11th inning, you start a runner on first. 12th inning, you start a runner on second. And then every inning after that, you start a runner on second or something like that. Like
Yeah,
scale it up so you get a little bit of normal baseball and it just gets increasingly, um, you more likely someone's going to score a run. That honestly, I'd be kind of fine with that. You get an extra inning to just win the normal way. And then a runner on first is an advantage, but it's not insane. You still have to like get a hit probably to get to score a runner.
right.
And then it escalates by the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, whatever. Your man on second is fine. Maybe even you could scale it all the way up to a man starts on third if you get to like the 14th or 15th inning or something like that. But like the way it is now, it just goes from zero to crapshoot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hate it. But so home run derby, baby. That's what I'm calling for.
Okay, whatever.
All right. So in between now and the next episode, we will have concluded the trade deadline. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So we
The trade
wanted
deadline is July 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah. So it is upon us. That is next Tuesday. So Tuesday evening is the trade deadline. For once, our recording schedule kind of lines up
Yeah.
really well for this sort of event. So we record on Wednesday. So our episode next week, we'll be able to sort of break down what happened. But we've thought for this episode, we'd spend a little bit of time talking about options, predictions, things like that. I think it's pretty obvious the Cardinals are going to be buyers. Yay! It's kind of crazy. It was not that long ago that we were talking about, all right, what does this team look like as a seller for the second year in a row? Who are we moving, etc. But now they are in a playoff spot. There's enough wild card spots. It's close enough. The Cardinals only sell if they are truly out of it, like last year. And so we pretty much know they're going to be trying to improve the team. To what degree, we'll find out.
Yeah.
History would teach us that very rarely do they go all in on these moments. But there's some interesting options out there that kind of range the gamut of all in to, like, minor pieces, but there's a fair amount of like impactful pieces out there that I
Yeah.
don't think would break the bank. So Ben, why don't you start us though with where are we diagnosing the Cardinals as far as needs?
Yes, I think, and I think you and I are aligned on this as we've talked about it over the last month or so, is that the Cardinals' number one need right now is a starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, I would love that starting pitcher to be impactful. Somebody that slots right
Yeah.
behind Sonny Gray would be very ideal. As though our rotation of 1-1 and 3-4s hasn't been horrible. But obviously, as I just laid it out there, it's not the best way. And
It's
you
not the way
really,
you
if you
draw it up usually.
not the way you draw it up. And can you envision, a series in the playoffs starting with Sonny Gray going out and shoving, and Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn putting together a really solid performance to get us through game 2? Yeah, I think so. But like, I wouldn't bet any amount of money on that actually happening. So I'm viewing starting pitcher as their number one need, right-handed bat as their second most important need, and then reliever help, just because who doesn't need reliever help? I think that that's been made even more important with Jojo Romero's recent struggles.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Jojo will bounce back, and I'm not overly worried about him. Even a bad handful of outings for a reliever can just
Yeah.
feel and look really, really bad. But let's pay, like, he had a great end of last year. He had a great start of this year. I think he'll turn it around. His ERA is still under 3 at 2.63.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I think a reliever it may be more of a luxury for this team than an absolute need, but it would be
You can always
a
use
welcome
more.
addition. Right.
All right, Ben, let me take a shot at this. Starting
Yeah.
pitcher,
Yeah.
Jack Flaherty.
Okay.
Right-handed bat, Tyler O'Neill, and
I thought you were going to say Randy Arozarena.
okay, Randy Rosarina. And reliever, Chris
Jordan
Stratton.
Hicks.
Jordan Hicks. There you
Chris Stratton. Yeah.
go. Jordan
Yeah.
Hicks is a better answer.
The Cardinals could use all of those players.
We don't want those guys.
No, I don't know. I mean, Jack wouldn't have a choice. He doesn't have
No.
5 and 10 or anything like that. So
Yeah.
he'd have to come back. Arozarena, I do think, is an interesting call. I do have some other players that I would like to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we already talk about Tommy Pham?
No, I know you, a little peek behind the curtain. We've had it on the outline a couple times, but we keep going way longer than we already want to, and so it keeps getting cut. But yeah, I know you've been wanting to talk about Tommy Pham as a trade target, and he kind of fits into the whole stew of White Sox people that seem interesting.
Yeah. Why don't we just talk about White Sox guys for a minute then? I think Tommy Pham makes a lot of sense for the St. Louis Cardinals. I do wonder if there is a behind the curtain type issue that would mean that this deal is just absolutely never going to happen, that you and I and the listeners
Are
are
we
just not
ready for
privy
the
to.
revenge tour to make another stop back here in St. Louis? I
Oh,
don't
I would
know.
love it so much, but I think
The
it should be noted, like, Tommy Pham is a productive major league
Mhm.
player. He still hits the ball really hard. He does not have great launch angle, but he hits the ball hard consistently. He still walks at a really decent rate, and he can still play a little bit of defense and still even run a little bit. This guy who's career, I mean, it's I know that Tommy Pham is a little bit crazy. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, especially I think it makes him kind of fun to root for.
Yeah, I like Tommy Pham. I mean, he is the owner of the second most famous slap in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and if we're playing a team that has Jack Peterson going into the playoffs, you got to
Uh-oh.
feel like you have an advantage going into
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, he hits the ball hard. He has a good eye. He can play all three outfield positions, and he's a right-handed bat. I mean, we all know Tommy Pham. Everybody remembers he had a very successful Cardinals tenure. He put almost 6 WAR up in his final season, full season as a Cardinal. He's not that player anymore, but he's a guy that could come off the bench and give you a really solid at bat against a left-handed pitcher. He's a guy that can go out there and play enough defense. I don't think that he's going to cost very much as far as prospect capital or trade capital because he is a 36-year-old lunatic with bad eyes. Like, I think he's very gettable.
You're a little too close to home about a 36-year-old with bad eyes.
Oh, yeah, I guess you are insane. So you and Tommy Pham have a lot in common. That's funny. Slightly different build, and I have a feeling you go to strip clubs less often than Tommy Pham,
Probably.
but just a little bit less.
Uh,
Um,
just never heard him described that way before.
Stopped you in your tracks, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were a little perplexed why the White Sox even went for him, and I think this is basically best case scenario. They
Yeah.
were going for him for a little bit of a bounce back, and probably to try to trade him if he does well. So certainly seems like he'll be moved, and I think it's fair. I do suspect there's probably a degree of just like we're not touching him after everything. I mean, he did. It wasn't a like he's been kind of contentious with every team, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's really like a Cardinals specific thing. But I can imagine as a like a management group, you're just like, I don't care about the 340 expected WOBA. Like, we just don't want to have to talk to this guy every day in the dugout, and he'd probably be on the bench,
Yeah.
which is maybe not what he wants. And so then you'd certainly hear about it. So I'd be surprised if it happens, but maybe as part of a broader package to get one of the other White Sox guys.
Yeah. Well, I think we should talk about that other White Sox guy. He's the Eric Fetty. We talked about him a few weeks ago as the most obvious Cardinals pickup there
Yeah.
is. Now, the big question is his cost. But Eric Fetty has only gone on to just continue to push to be a really solid pitcher this year. He's got over 117 innings thrown right now. He has an ERA plus of 138, an FIP of 3.67. He's not striking out very many people. He's 31 years old. He still has one more year of control after this year, but national reporters have connected Eric Fetty to the Cardinals. Um, it's like the most Cardinals ass move to
Yeah.
get some guy like this. And not to, or maybe I already said this, but he also has $7.5 million for next year, which the Cardinals obviously need more pitching help next year. Um,
Yeah,
what
that'd be
kind of
cheaper than
package?
Lynn, be cheaper than Gibson. I mean, that'd be cheaper than pretty much any option you're going to find on the open market.
Right. So that deal, I mean, if there's a deal that exists with Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham, which again, how likely is that? I don't really know. Um, but that's a deal that could make a lot of sense. That being said, I imagine many teams will be in on Eric Fetty.
Yeah, because like for all the reasons you I said you and a lot of people have identified him as a great target for the Cardinals. Like every team wants that like super solid number 3 that is not going to cost you anything, and you get him for another year. Like
Right.
that's I mean it's worked out again really well for the White Sox, who are having a historically bad season, but somehow also have a couple really good trade chips that will maybe help them turn it around. Yeah, I suspect that the Cardinals will be having pretty serious conversations about Eric Fetty. And as Cardinal fans, if the Cardinals do acquire Eric Fetty, I think we'd be pretty happy about it. He's young enough that you can still project some quality, maybe even a little bit of growth still, though probably
Yeah.
not. At the very least, though, some consistency. And I think he's just a better shot to give you what Kyle Gibson offers on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a little more consistent. The stuff is a little better.
Yeah.
I don't think, we talked about how I think this guy would technically in the Cardinals rotation slot in right behind Sonny Gray. I don't think he's a slam dunk number two. He's like a soft three
Yeah.
ish type guy. But he's on the wrong side of 30. Nothing is eye popping. He's just kind of effective. He's like Mark Burley esque,
Yeah.
just kind of a working man's, a blue collar starting pitcher.
Wow. Now
And
that, and Cardinal fans are going to love that. Hoo-wee.
I know what Brad would say. Oh, this guy, he doesn't throw. He's out there pitching. He's got a game plan. He's not just throwing. He's setting guys up and setting them down.
Yeah.
That kind of bullshit. So I
Yeah.
don't
And
know.
Chip Carey, he doesn't get hammered as much as someone like Lynn does.
I don't know. I bet it Fetty parties.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's so. I think outside of that, there are other White Sox players who I would love the Cardinals to go get Luis Robert Jr. or
Yeah.
Garrett Crochet or end of list. I think.
Is Have people talked about Kopech as a reliever? I think pretty much anybody that's having a mildly good season on that team, people are suspecting as potential trade targets.
I am not against the idea of Kopech, but I think what he would cost and his
Yeah.
current performance is no thank you for me. I will say John Brebbia is also a relief pitcher
Yeah.
on the Chicago White Sox, and he would be a welcome addition. He is having a very weird season where all of his peripherals look incredible. He has a 3.11 FIP. He's striking out over 11 guys per nine, but somehow his ERA is 5.22.
Yeah. I mean, that's the life of a reliever, right?
Yeah.
You can have one game, you give up 6 runs, the management's just like, I'll leave him out there. He's got to get the next 2 innings, and your entire season's line is completely ruined. I don't know if that's what happened with him, but like that's the life of a reliever, especially around midseason when you only have 30 or so innings under your
Yeah.
belt. Like 1 or 2 absolute blowups can just cook your whole season.
But yeah, I mean, he's cooking or he's having a nice little season outside of that. So
Hmm.
maybe another person to consider, and obviously another Cardinals connection. And we love that, don't we, folks?
Oh, we love it. Yeah, you have to imagine every single one of these guys is gettable. If you're willing to pay the price.
Yeah, that's the real cool. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's move on to another pitcher that I think the Cardinals should target, Chris Bassett.
Mm.
Long time. He was a Oakland A. He was a New York Met. He's currently on Toronto. Toronto, I think it's fair to assume that they're out of the race at this point.
Yeah,
They,
I wonder if they feel that way. They're a team that has been pretty consistently like going for it for a couple years in a row now for obvious reasons.
yeah,
They've got some real star power on that team, but they just have not been able to put it together year after year after year.
I know it's such a weird team. I really thought that just between Bo Bichette and Vladdy, that they would do some pretty special things in their division, and it just hasn't happened.
Well,
Um,
Bichette has been kind of trash. I've been
yeah.
seeing some. This is a this is a rough comp, but I've been seeing some Andrew Benintendi comps
Oh,
to
yeah.
Bichette. Have like an incredible all around first year. Second year is pretty good, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And EV goes down, everything goes down, and you just kind of become this like not
I
doing anything particularly well.
I think Benintendi might be statistically the worst player in baseball this year. I think
Yeah,
he's like
so
at -2 WAR or something like
rough
that.
comp
Yeah,
for Bichette, but I mean, really look at it, he's been pretty bad.
yeah.
Vlad has been
Um,
good, but has not come close to his
it's getting hotter and hotter though.
2021.
You just get that
He is.
those
He's still
numbers are
good.
rising. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still good. He's still Vlad. There was a like a trade rumor go or not rumor. Everyone loves to put up these really dumb like one team gets this, one team gets that, like trade projections or whatever. And
You mean
someone,
any trade? One team gets this, one team gets
I
that.
know I'm really stumbling on just like a fan projection of what a trade could be.
Okay. All
And I
right.
saw
Yes.
one with the Cardinals getting Vlad and like Barrios or Vlad and Bassett, like you're talking about. And it's just
Yeah.
like the Blue Jays are not going to trade. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Not
No,
now.
if I had to put money on it, I think the Blue Jays are going to extend Vlad, and he'll die a
Yeah.
Blue Jay forever and ever.
Damn.
Yeah.
Die actively as a Blue Jay.
Yes. Yep. Putting money on
Rough.
that right now.
Oof.
If that happens, I'm gonna be a very wealthy man. All right, Chris Bassett.
Yeah.
Okay, so he is again. He's kind of in the Eric Fetty mold. Nothing too spectacular, but pretty consistent, and he's been pretty healthy recently, which I think is something the Cardinals should be excited about. He has 114 innings thrown this year. His K per nine is a little over 8. His ERA is 3.71. His FIP is 3.84. So he's a good run preventing type pitcher. He throws everything. He has a
Mm-hmm.
fastball, a sinker, a cutter, a a four seam, a cutter, a split, a slider, a curveball, and a changeup. This guy's insane. I don't know how much you've watched him, but he uses all of the pitches every game. He calls his own pitches. He's kind of like professorial, kind of like how they used to describe Maddox pitching. Obviously, doesn't have the high octane stuff that Greg Maddox had, but his slider and curveball have been standouts this year. And his sinker and his sinker and splitter have been very, very solid as well. He's a great command pitcher. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He gets a lot of ground balls. He can strike people out when he needs to. He's got a really weird delivery. He is also signed into next year for
Yeah.
I think it's about $22 million next year. He is on the wrong side of 30 as well. He's 35. I think that this would make a lot of sense for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I think he is the type of pitcher that can provide innings, and I think he is a tick above the quality of pitcher that Eric Fetty is. But by no means is he starting game one, or he's not anything that necessarily jumps off the page, I guess, but somebody who I really like.
Yeah, I like Bassett. I am always a sucker for those art of pitching guys. It is one of my favorite things
It's
about the
fun.
sport is the art of pitching. So,
And you get visibly angry when you're watching a thrower.
oh, they're just throwing it, Ben. They're
Ah,
just throwing. I want to see him pitch it. You know
yes.
what I mean?
Oh, I get it.
Pitch the damn ball.
You're preaching to the choir, my brother.
And there's traffic on I-95 this morning, so you're going to want to take the outer roads. All right. So yeah, I like Bassett. I really do, and I think it is in the Fetty mold. I do think he is a tick above. He'd be very clearly, I think, the second best pitcher on the team, and I suspect that he will cost a little bit more than Fetty because of the track record. But I don't think he'll be. He's also more than double the cost of Fetty, actually almost exactly triple the cost of Fetty. So maybe you find something in there to balance it out a little bit. But yeah, I think he'd be good. To me, these are the guys like Bassett and Fetty. There's a couple other that like I think are the realistic targets for the Cardinals and the type of guy that we would be excited to have join the team. This is not you like this is a closer to going out and getting Jordan Montgomery than
Right.
it was going out and getting 39-year-old John Lester.
Yeah. Yeah. That worked though. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. Yeah. Well, speaking of Jordan Montgomery, why don't we talk about a couple of lefties that I think the Cardinals are well, I'll take a step back. I think the Cardinals are definitely interested in one of these guys, and the other one might be a pipe dream shared by only myself. So I'm curious to
Yeah.
see how you feel about this. I'll just lay them both out there. Tyler Anderson has to be available. You would assume that he is available. He is a starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Angels right now. He is 34, left-handed pitcher, and his 2 years with the Angels have been interesting. Last year, not so great. This year, he is inducing a lot of weak contact, but it's not eye popping by any means. He's got 123 innings thrown, just under 7 Ks per nine. His left on base percentages are nice. His ERA is nice. But when you pop the hood, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
I think it would be fair to assume that he's pitching a little over his skis this year, and that may or may not sustain. fairly quickly. The other left-hander I want to throw out there, Nate, is Blake Snell.
Yeah, I saw you throw him on here. He is a free agent after this year, though he has a player option.
A player
Um,
option.
yeah,
So
uh,
let me
yeah,
let me hit the stats and then I'll
okay.
I'll open the floor up for you. So obviously Blake Snell is everybody knows Blake Snell, two-time Cy Young Award winner, had a really hard time of finding a place to play this year because of he's a weird pitcher. But in a limited, he's only had 9 starts and 41 innings. He has almost a 10K per nine. His fastball is throwing harder than he has thrown it since 2018. His ERA is scary. It's 5.83, but his FIP and XFIP are both sitting at 3.93, meaning, and again, just in case people don't understand that fielding independent pitching is a metric that is trying to measure how that pitcher would be performing if luck wasn't, or luck was less involved as far as fielding, fielder alignment, that kind of stuff. So he's inducing weak contact. He's striking guys out. Um, and I think the Giants, I think it would make a lot of sense for them to move Blake Snell. He is expensive for this year. He's potentially expensive for next year. But obviously, this is a guy who slots in properly right
Hmm.
behind Sonny Gray if things are going right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you and I were both pretty high on the Cardinals should sign Blake Snell
Yep.
when he was in this sort of stuck in between position during the offseason. And I would have been happy had the Cardinals given him the exact same contract that the Giants did. Now, it really has not worked out very well for the Giants. So I guess we're okay that the Cardinals didn't do that. But uh, I'm always a fan of the high risk, high reward. We're getting a guy for 2 months, and if it pays off, we're suddenly a pretty competitive playoff team. So I'm a big fan of the idea. I do wonder what the Giants are thinking. I suspect that they are probably talking to him right now about his intentions this offseason. The Giants are not unlike the Cardinals, where they kind of go for it every year, sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter, but they're rarely going into a season saying we are rebuilding. So if he intends to pick up the player option and the Giants don't get blown away in any offers, I think they'd probably be pretty content to just keep him and go for it again next year like they
Right.
always do. So I do think that they probably they're smart too. They know those underlying metrics. He's only at 40 innings, just like I was saying with a reliever. Like that's a pretty small sample size. I think he got hit hard, like really hard in one of his first starts coming back from injury, and he's been pretty good otherwise. I could be a little wrong on that, but like it's still just it's Blake Snell. He's won 2 Cy Youngs. So I don't think you're really going to get much of a discount for him. And I don't know that the Giants are going to be too just ready. They're not going to dump him. It would be my expectation. So probably a harder target than everyone else you've listed. But I like it. I like that high end, high risk, high reward kind of guy. Cardinals going in a 3-game series against the Brewers when you've got Gray and Snell as 1 and 2.
Ooh,
You
how
got
good
to
does
feel
that
pretty
sound?
good about that,
Yeah.
right? So I'm here for it. I'd be pretty surprised. And I'd also have very little interest in Tyler Anderson
Yeah,
for all
I
the
think that
reasons
that's fair.
you said.
He seems like a Cardinals guy. As much as Fetty seems like a Cardinals guy,
Oh, for
Tyler
sure.
Anderson's
Yeah.
got it written all over him.
Yeah.
One last point I want to make about Blake Snell, just to be 100% clear on how good this guy is. In his limited throwing, looking at Stuff Plus, his fastball, his slider, his curveball, and his changeup. He has thrown a much better changeup this year than in years past, have all been well above average pitches. He is a 4-pitch pitcher. All 4 pitches are playing above average this year. Now he still has location problems, but his stuff is disgusting. I think that he would really like pitching in a ballpark like we have here in St. Louis at Busch.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. This, we were talking about the John Mozeliak going for it and pushing in.
Yeah.
I think Blake Snell for the next or year and a half is a push in move. We're trying to win with our corner guys. We're trying to get past the hurdle of
Yeah.
the division series, but we shall see.
Yeah, which is why I think it's very unlikely. Not to be a pessimist,
Yeah, no, yeah, I
but
know.
like, it's just when have we
I
seen it?
know,
You know,
but they should do it.
yeah, I agree.
And
The same
I think,
conversation we had about Max Scherzer 2 weeks ago.
yeah, I think like to talk about if Tommy Edman was healthy, like a Tommy Edman, Dylan Carlson move for Blake Snell, I actually think makes a lot of sense. They don't have a great option at second base, or the kid at shortstop hasn't really come together yet. And then Dylan Carlson, I think somebody could dream on him, but with the high end uh, expectations for Tommy Edman, I wonder if something like that gets the deal done. They could also use both those players next year. Um,
I'm
and
afraid this falls under the category if that you're salivating over it as a Cardinal fan, then it's like almost certainly unlikely to be exciting to another team. Like that sounds like trading your spare parts for a former Cy Young winner, which is just never going to happen. They're going to
Yeah,
want
I
more
think
than
you're
a
wrong though, because of the cost of Blake Snell and because the Giants don't necessarily need a Blake Snell right now, and they have an acute need for an outfielder and a middle infielder, and Tommy Edman is both of those things.
if
I think you're underrating Tommy Edman.
if they're me, no, never. If they're accepting that deal, there's like 8 other teams that I think are probably offering more though. You know,
Well, I guess.
yeah,
I
it's a
no,
big
I think you're massively underrating Tommy Edman. Now he's injured, which I think
yeah. That's
places
part of
a
it.
large issue on this. But like Tommy Edman puts up numbers. Tommy Edman has been worth more WAR since he's come up than Blake Snell. I think you're kind of criminally underrating my boy here.
I think the statement "if Tommy Edman were healthy" is doing a lot of work. He just keeps having setbacks, and I don't know that anybody's going and acquiring Tommy Edman right now. Yeah,
Yeah, but like
if
they'd
he
be
was having a
focused
half,
towards next year if they make this trade. You understand that part of it, right?
sure, but he
Yeah,
only has 1 year left too. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's
Hey, I
probably not
sure
going to
hope you're
happen.
right.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
I am more just trying to make the point. I think that you're undervaluing Tommy Edman and what he brings, and I think a team, especially a team that plays in a ballpark and is built like the Giants, would value him more than I think that you are. And
possibly.
if you're throwing in a Dylan Carlson, a former high end draft or a former high end prospect, maybe that's enough. Maybe I'm crazy. Tweet at us. Let me know if I'm totally off base. But I think Nate's wrong, and I think I'm right.
Hmm. Well, I think I'll be proven right when this exact trade doesn't happen. That means I'm right. So
What a fun way to have this conversation.
I'm going to be so
Dumbass.
pissed when exactly that trade happens.
um, I will say I think trading Dylan Carlson is probably the smart money right now. I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not, but I just know whether it's the Giants or whoever, he is going to just start banging and
Oh,
playing
for
really
sure.
good center field.
Yeah. He has basically no trade value right now. So he's going to get dumped. And then he's going to go and pop off like 4.5 WAR next year for somebody playing a solid center field and hitting, 21 home runs or something.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch his career with great interest. Um, All right. So yeah, two other things I want to talk about is I'm curious to see how you shoot this one down and how much you hate it.
Hmm.
Uh, but let's talk about Emerson Hancock. Um, I think I think the world of Emerson Hancock. He is uh, a guy that has been bopping back and forth in between MLB and AAA for the Seattle Mariners this year. He is a guy that has pretty high octane stuff. He is a well regarded prospect, and the Mariners are in desperate need of offensive help pretty much anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, like Luke Baker would be an addition to their team, even though we
Yeah.
don't really know what he would do at the major league level. Like anybody who can hit the ball a little bit would be a benefit to their team. They just dropped Ty France. So they have openings, they have a need. And like I said, this is a pitcher who I believe in. Um, if it's not coming this year, I think it's coming very soon. And it's a little more of a different move. You're not getting the 35-year-old established guy. You'd be
Yeah.
trading for a 25-year-old who is still figuring things out, but has a lot of reason to be excited about his offering.
Yeah, I mean, big picture, I like the idea of acquiring an Emerson Hancock, and I do think that there's probably a trade that lines up here. His value is kind of low right now. He was recently optioned. He hasn't quite put it together yet at any, you know, super valuable way just yet. So I think you could probably get him at a reasonable price, or like Luke and Baker as a starting point kind of makes sense to me. I think it's probably unlikely just because of feels like an offseason move where you're like setting up your rotation. You're like, oh, we'll get Hancock and put him in the fifth spot, and we'll dream on his upside. For a team that's looking to improve right now for this next 2.5 months and a potential playoff run, it doesn't really feel like the type of move that you go and do. But I like there's a lot of these guys on the Mariners we've talked about for a couple of years now that
I
they
just want a Mariners
I
starting
know.
pitcher.
Yeah.
Any one of them would
I
be
know.
amazing.
Right. I bet I yeah, like I this doesn't really seem to fit the scope of what they're looking for right now, but it would be fun to have Emerson Hancock. I do think he will be good.
Well, fine then, Nate. Let's just not do anything.
uh, I'm going to throw in two guys that you haven't mentioned yet, real quick. And there has been some reporting that the Cardinals are at least checking in on them. These go back into that higher end level. Zach Eflin from the Tampa Bay Rays and Nathan Eovaldi from the Texas Rangers are two
Yeah.
guys that the Cardinals have been linked to. They're probably outside of maybe Blake Snell, the most expensive from these people that you've listed. But they would add like immediate, uh, you know, number right behind Sonny Gray value that I think would be interesting. And we've seen the Cardinals make trades with both of these teams before. And it certainly seems like those existing relationships help in these sorts of situations. So I'll be curious to see if those guys get traded and what the cost for them are.
I am not a Zach Eflin guy at all.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the Rays thing, they go and they find a guy who's been middling for someone else, they bring him over, they make a couple tweaks, and he has an incredible season, and then, it kind of goes from there. What I like about Eflin is he has insane control. He has, I think, like 115 innings right now with 13 total walks, which is very, very impressive. And he had a really good year last year, and I'd feel pretty comfortable with him starting any game. I agree. There's a little, he's really only had like one really good year. There's a reason that the Rays got him for a pretty reasonable price, but I don't know. He's apparently available, and the Cardinals have talked about,
Yeah.
or reporting indicates that they have checked in on him. So that is worth mentioning.
Yeah, I would of those two, I would be much more interested in the Cardinals bringing in Nathan Eovaldi. Now he obviously has challenges too, where the guy just cannot stay healthy. I think he's had like, is it 3 Tommy Johns or is he only 2? He hasn't had 3, right?
Yeah, very few people have had three.
Yeah.
I think you just quit
Um,
instead of,
yeah.
unless
But
you're what Verlander has maybe had three, or DeGrom or something like that.
yeah,
But yeah,
somebody's had 3, I bet. But he's got a little more. His stuff is a little more high octane. He has the playoff experience.
his
Um,
first name is Nathan.
oh,
It's
yeah,
very
never mind.
valuable.
I just think he's a better pitcher overall.
Yeah,
Now that being said, he's probably going to cost more. Um, and if I remember correctly, Eflin has a couple of years remaining on that deal, so you'd be trading for a couple of years down the line. I don't really have a problem with Eflin. It's just not. I don't. I kind of put him as like a 3 or 4 rather than a solid 2, and definitely not a 1. Um, but like you said, the control is nice, but he just doesn't really strike out people. I would really like to have the Cardinals chase a little better K per 9, if it's out there.
yeah. Well, last year he like it's very probable that last year was just a career year, and you'd be paying for that a little bit because last year he struck out almost 9.5
Right.
K per 9, and this year he's back to his more traditional 7.16. But still, he's worth 1.7 WAR on a 3.5 WAR pace, which would make him probably by multiple WAR the second best pitcher on the Cardinals. He would be a clear improvement for this team.
Every guy that we've listed would be a
Yeah,
clear improvement. Let's
that's
let's
fair.
be clear about that. I would take any of these guys over watching what our dear friend Matthew Liberatore did, as you and I have been sitting here chatting during this
Mm,
record.
yeah,
Um, and Andre Palante is also starting to give me the heebie-jeebies. So yes, to be
yeah,
to make sure we're on the same page, all of those guys would be an upgrade. I would take any of them. Um, it's just to what degree do we want to improve and get ready for the playoffs? And if
yeah,
that is what the Cardinals are aiming for, which I hope so. But anyways, Blake Snell, Blake Snell, Blake Snell.
yeah.
Give me Blake Snell. I want Blake Snell.
So who are the Cardinals trading for these guys? Who's on the block?
I I hate to say this, but the way in which the Cardinals have gone about treating my guy Ivan Herrera,
Yeah.
the fact that he's been demoted, the fact that they clearly like Pedro Page's defense and game calling over Ivan Herrera. Ivan Herrera has been hitting in AAA. He was hitting in the big leagues. Uh, he's broken out his power swing a little bit more in AAA in his short amount of time he's been down there. Um, this is the thing the Cardinals have to do every time. Shit or get off the pot. Pick the guys that you want to keep and get rid of the other guys.
Yeah.
Ivan Herrera is doing absolutely nothing for you in AAA. And Pedro Pages, if he is the guy, that's fine. Stick with him. Let him be the backup and move Ivan Herrera. You have other catchers that we're excited about. Nick Raposo, Jimmy Crooks is
Yep.
only getting better and better. I don't like the move. I think I would, if I was in charge, I would put Ivan Herrera over Pedro Pages.
Hmm.
But Pedro Pages' trade value is probably pretty low. Ivan Herrera's trade value is probably pretty high. And I think that if the Cardinals are going to make any deal for any real impact talent, he kind of has to be at the headline of it. He is just not needed for the way that this team is constructed right now, and probably has still is worth something. He's a 24-year-old catcher that can really hit the ball. That's hard to find.
Yeah. I think you could in a similar way to how the Cardinals traded for Paul Goldschmidt by centering it mostly around Carson Kelly. You probably can do something similar with Ivan Herrera, and Kelly has and is still playing. Has had a pretty
Yeah.
good career. So yeah, I think he's definitely one of your top trade picks. I do think teams you don't see a lot of people trading for like offensive first catchers, but with the universal DH and just everybody needs offense, like
Your
there's
robo
probably
umps,
some.
Nate, they're right around the damn corner. Who cares how he frames a ball with the robo umps?
That's a
Just
great
all he needs to
point.
do is slug and make sure the ball doesn't get past him, and Ivan can do that.
Yeah. I think we may see, you already mentioned Luke and Baker. Although it wouldn't surprise me if the Cardinals are just holding on a little bit to see where we go with Paul Goldschmidt. But with the acquisition of JJ Weatherholt and his recent signing, hooray, it's locked in. I wonder if Thomas Sajasi is back on the block. He hasn't had the best year this year, but he's a guy that a lot of teams, like, people like this type of player, can do
Yep.
everything. There's a reason the Cardinals went and got him. He crushed the ball last year. So I think that JJ Weatherholt has leapfrogged him on the depth chart.
The
A
death chart.
the depth chart. He is if you haven't seen it, Weatherholt is a couple charts I've seen him as the Cardinals' number one prospect
Yeah.
and somewhere around top 25 overall prospects in baseball, which is pretty cool. So anyway, that does make for someone like Sajasi, who is right at near MLB level, and is already kind of redundant on the team with Donovan and the return of Edman and Gorman, and you keep going. I could see Sajasi being back on the block.
Yeah.
Um, I've wondered. I hate to bring this up, but if you're really going for one of those top end guys, are you doing a Jordan Walker sort of thing? I really doubt it. But when we're talking about
If it
trade chips, you have to include him.
Yeah, if it's Jordan Walker, if we're talking about Blake Snell, no, just keep Jordan Walker.
Yeah,
Now, I threw this out on Twitter earlier this week. If we're talking about putting together a package for somebody like a Tarek Skubal, then I'm putting Jordan Walker on the trade block.
sure. Yeah,
Like Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, Ivan Herrera,
I
and
think if
then
you're doing Scooble, it's going to have to be Walker, Gorman. Scott, Roby, and like two more top 25 prospects from the Cardinals. Like
Yeah.
you'd be trading for the front runner Cy Young with multiple years of control. Like
Yeah.
those. Look at what did the Red Sox give up for um, Chris Sale back in the day, or what did the Padres give up for Juan Soto? You know, like it's not
Well,
exactly
that
the
Soto
same,
deal is going down as one of the worst deals of all time. So I don't think that's a good reference point. I do think
but
the Chris Sale one is a much better reference point.
similar top of game,
Yeah.
like winning hardware, multiple years of control, etc. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the Padres. Whoops.
Yeah,
Um,
that's going to go that they I understand why you referenced it, but that is going to go down as the biggest overpay and the biggest mistake in recent trade history.
yeah,
Uh, but again, I think that the Chris Sale one I think is a little more apt. Multiple high end prospects, although no real major league service time. So that's
yeah,
the question: is it a Gorman or is it just all of your prospects?
yeah.
Um,
Going back onto the list for the regular trades, Juan Bin Cho I've seen has been thrown around as
yeah,
he's a fun player, somebody that a team would be excited to get. We'd be sad to lose him, but you got to trade talent to get talent. So I could see him being involved in a trade. Um, yeah, I mean that's really where you're looking. McGreevy, Kloffenstein, Showalter. You know, we can just
and
read names
with
off a list, but
Ciani, has Ciani made Victor Scott kind of redundant? I'm sure the team is thinking about that, talking about that. Is he part of the future when you have somebody like Ciani doing what he's doing? I think that you and I probably imagine that Victor Scott's offensive floor is a little higher than Ciani,
mhm.
but Ciani's doing it right now, and as we've said 100 times this season, he's the or one of the best center fielders in baseball, and that's huge.
Yeah, another option would be to capitalize on the sudden uh like rapid escalation of Quinn Matthews. I think
Yeah,
we're all very, very excited about him. But it's still he's been doing it in 1 year, and there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. So if someone's willing to give you uh, a competitive current MLB level player for the hype of Quinn Matthews, you might want to capitalize on that. He could end up being awesome. I think there's a lot of reason to think he's going to be awesome, but there's just as much history and reason to expect that he'll struggle like almost every single
yeah.
pitching prospect does.
One other name I'll throw out there is Cesar Prieto, who was
Hmm.
acquired during the Jack Flaherty deal last year. He's been sitting all year at AAA and has put together some pretty solid numbers. You know, he does not have necessarily a great defensive home, but he would be a great role player on a team. He's 25. He hits from the left side, high contact. He's really upped his power this year. He's got 12 home runs already. Um, but another name that do the Cardinals need another left-handed hitting
Yeah.
middle infielder that's not all that great at defense? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, the one guy I'll throw out that I don't think that they'll trade. They should not trade, and I'd be very bummed for them to trade no matter who they get. Would be Tink Hens. I just can't see it happening.
Don't move
Uh,
Tink Hens,
don't
please.
move Tink Hens. Yeah, he is the future solution to a lot of the problems you're trying to solve right now, and that's part of running an organization. But the Cardinals have never. That's where I can feel a little bit more comfortable. This is not AJ Preller.
Yeah,
I feel pretty comfortable that the Cardinals are not going to trade Tink Hens. Unless, of course, it was like a Tarek Skubal type thing, in which case I'd be like, well, okay, it is what
yeah.
it is.
Bye, buddy. Sorry,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
cannot wait to watch this guy pitch for the next 3 years.
yeah. But it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we just threw out a lot of different options.
See how
No,
wrong we're going to
yeah,
be in a
knowing
week's
John
time. Yeah.
Mozeliak, it's going to be somebody that we did not talk about at all, and no one will see it coming until
Yeah.
like Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader. Just like completely out of left field. Great deal. Everybody loved it. It just no one saw it coming at all. So we'll see. We'll be back next week to talk about all of it. I know I love deadline season. I like that they moved it up to 6 p.m. so I don't have to be sitting on my damn phone at midnight
Yeah.
refreshing MLB trade rumors, waiting for that last second thing to go through. That's been a helpful and just excitement building change for this whole season, or for this whole process of trade deadline.
I'll just throw out one more hitter really quick. We don't even have to talk about it. Luis Rengifo of the Angels.
Mm,
Um, Switch hitting guy having a nice couple of seasons, really. I'll just throw that out there. They don't need him. Go get him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's had a better year than I was expecting. He's been pretty good for them. So I think we're going to move on. And we want to talk about the series coming up and a few other things. But before we do, we want to remind everybody that this show is listener supported on Patreon, supported by listeners just like you, wherever
Wow.
you are. If you enjoy this show, want to support its existence, uh, we would love it if you would take a little bit of time to go and explore our Patreon. There's a lot of different levels, but all of it starting at just $2 a month. Uh, Subscribers at any level get access to our private Discord server. We call it the Bird Score Tweet Baby. It's a great place to go and meet other Cardinal fans and get away from the noise of the current horrible social media environment. I'm sure it'll be very active as the trade deadline approaches. You also get early episodes, which we have a very consistent release date, but for our patrons, I'm usually able to get it out to them sometime on Wednesday. So if that's appealing to you, that's another perk of the show or of Patreon. If you can't join the Patreon, we would love it if you would take a moment to review us on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us, really does. Only takes a few minutes. We really appreciate it for all of you who have done it. And if you're thinking about it, just do it. Just pull over off the road or do it responsibly while driving.
What?
And I'm just JKing. Okay. But yeah,
You're just kidding.
I'm just kidding. I'm just JKing. Ben, where can people find us online otherwise?
Yes, you can follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We are on Instagram at Talking About Birds. You can look at our faces on TikTok. We got a TikTok. Check us out on TikTok. The show is available on Spotify. You can also listen to the show on YouTube if you're one of those freaks. You can email us thoughts, questions, anything at all to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. And of course, you can always call us and leave a voicemail or send us a text message to 848 birds. That's 848 482 4737.
Yes, and shout out to the listener who very politely informed us about purchasing an antenna for our TVs, so we can watch these things that are on national broadcast. And I'm not going to listen to your propaganda. All right,
Wow.
so just big antenna. I know you. I see you out there. But they have a point.
I think we're complaining about the larger problem,
Yes,
but I
we are.
understand what they were getting at.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. It's good feedback though.
Yes. Do we
Thank
bitch and
you.
moan too much? Maybe.
Maybe. All right. The Cardinals continue their easy schedule. The Nationals are coming to St. Louis for 3. The playoff race is tightening up.
Yeah.
The upstart Pirates putting it together a little bit right now. So the Cardinals need every win they can get. They're going to need every win they can get for the rest of the season. It's going to be close, and their schedule is going to start getting harder.
Yeah.
They are actually in like the top 10 of difficult schedule in the last 2 months of the season. So you got to capitalize with these games as the softer schedule remains. The Nationals, we've talked about them a fair amount. They have some very fun and exciting high-end players, but they're just not there yet. So you'll get to see James Woods. You'll get to see CJ Abrams. Who else, Ben? Who should we be looking for?
Yeah. Lane the Train Thomas, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming to town. I know you get excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other player that's really worthwhile talking right now is Mackenzie Gore. I think he's just fantastic
Yeah.
and getting better and better. And um,
I
he's
think he's a future like ace, Cy Young
yeah,
contender. I think he's gonna be a problem.
he's very good. I do think we're talking about the trade deadline. You're looking at these Washington Nationals. I think that Kyle Finnegan, their all-star closer, is going to get traded here soon. Jesse Winker has trade candidate written all over him. So I think that this team, it's very likely that they get worse before this series even starts.
Yeah.
That being said, if they get rid of Jesse Winker, that might mean it's Dylan Cruz season.
Mm.
One of the better hitting prospects in the minor leagues might be coming up. And them having, James Wood in one corner outfield position and Dylan Cruz in the other outfield corner position. Their future is bright.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, yeah, like you said, CJ Abrams is the man. He's really put it together this season. He is so fun to watch. Outside of that, they're kind of a bad team. Patrick Corbin, I don't think can throw 2 starts like he did against the Cardinals and shut them down.
Yeah.
The Cardinals should be able to handle this team, who is not very good.
Yep. And then after that, another team likely to be active at the trade deadline,
Yeah.
in the same way that the Nationals are, is the Texas Rangers. So the Cardinals have 3 against the Rangers at home. Wouldn't it be fun if we had one of those things where a guy gets traded and just walks across the field to the other team? That has happened before. Let's have Nathan Eovaldi supposed to start the Saturday game for the Rangers, but instead he starts it for the Cardinals. How fun would that be?
That would be fun. I like the Eovaldi move. We talked about that. I'm still not convinced they're going to start breaking this team down.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer's coming back, or is back. Sorry. Oh my God, the guy that used to play for the Mets,
DeGrom.
DeGrom, is coming back at some point. Andrew Kisner is still their backup catcher. I
Yeah,
don't know if they're going to toss in the towel yet. Wyatt Langford has been coming on
he has.
recently. This team is pretty good.
You remember last week when we talked about the ball star team is like the worst player at each position.
Yeah.
Andrew Kisner is, at least on that thing, he was the worst catcher in baseball from a WAR perspective.
I fully turned around. He's a leader of men. There's so many intangibles that I don't even think you can begin to quantify his
Got an
value.
imaginary sack full of intangibles.
Oh man, his OPS plus right now is 7. Tell you what though, Andrew Kisner is going to be a highly sought after manager in a
Probably.
very short amount
You're
of time.
probably right about that. Yeah.
Man, what a weird season. He has 1 walk against 21 strikeouts.
Hey, he's gripping and ripping it, hanging and banging. That's what he do.
Uh-huh.
Huge swing. Every once in a while, he gets behind one.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So, anyways, they're a good team, and I think that they're playing better than they had been playing earlier in the year. I don't think by any means they're going to turn this around
Yeah.
entirely, but this is not a team to be messed with. They still have Corey Seager, Marcus
Yeah. I was
Simeon,
gonna say
Nathaniel
Seager.
Lowe.
Yeah, part of the reason they're in the range that they are is because of injuries, and there are a fair
Yeah.
amount of those guys have come back now. So it's probably oversimplification to call them like a struggling team this year. Their record puts them where they are, but they're still, they won the World Series last year, and most of that team is still there. They've just had a lot of injuries and ineffectiveness and stuff like that. So
Josh Smith has had a crazy good year for them after replacing their budding superstar at third base. They're
yeah,
good. They'll continue to be good. Just don't take them lightly.
yeah. All right, let's touch on a couple of pieces of league news.
Yeah, just a little bit of league news. I thought we should announce or just acknowledge the fact that Hall of Fame weekend happened on last weekend and Sunday. They were inducted. We had Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, and Jim Leland all elected into the Hall of Fame, all well deserving. Very happy specifically for Todd Helton, who is
Sure.
an area legend out here in Colorado. So nice for him to get his due. And I think that uh, the fact that there are 2 Rockies in the Hall of Fame all of a sudden is pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
Did you
And
did you see these things never look particularly good, but did you see Joe Mauer's plaque?
yes. Also, Joe Mauer looked a little unhealthy. He looked like pasty, like just not
Oh,
like an athlete.
I don't know.
I hope
But
he's
his
okay.
plaque, yeah, I hope so
Yeah,
too. His plaque looks bad. It does
yeah,
not
his
look
plaque
like
looks
him.
bad. No,
Little, yeah, it's not
it's got
great.
to be a weird conversation.
Yeah, you got to be a little bummed. You're like, there's an unveiling, and you see this thing, and you're like, ugh.
That's what I look like.
Yeah, yeah. At least I'm here, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, and obviously Adrian Beltre, first ballot, no, I
For
think
sure.
slam dunk Hall of Famer, one of the better ones we've had in recent memory. And Joe Mauer, obviously had a handful of really solid years. He's the only one that's bubbly for me, but I think that Joe Mauer being in the Hall of Fame is probably overall a fine
I
decision.
agree he's on the edge of where I would call Hall of Fame, but I'm not a small hall guy. I was like when we did our little ballots, he was an easy vote for me. I think he absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame, but I would agree that like he's on the lower tier of Hall of Fame players, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
All right. And then the last thing I want to talk about, we haven't talked about the A's situation in a while, and there was some interesting news that came out. So I'm just going to, I'm sure that I think I'm the only one that really cares about this. So thank you all for just vibing with
I'm
me here
pretty
for a
sure this
moment.
is a pretty big topic in baseball right now.
A's confirm there's no financing for the Las Vegas ballpark. Quote, there's no financing to pay for the venue at all. So that's interesting. I think the Sacramento A's are going to be around a lot longer than was initially planned.
Yeah.
Um,
What you're telling me, this whole thing has not been well conceived and is just a bullshit money grab that is collapsing. Was never even really any ground to stand on, let alone has started to collapse.
And then I want to read a little bit. I'll try to get through this quickly, but this is a note that I found online regarding a story around other Oakland area billionaires trying to bring either an expansion team or keep the A's. Um, and this is, we'll start with a quote from Rob Manfred. Look, our Oakland decisions have been made. What happened in Oakland is between the citizens of Oakland and their elected officials. The author, and I'm sorry I did not write down who wrote this article, so apologize for that. Author says, oh, why is it then that various Bay Area groups interested in buying the A's and keeping them in Oakland or bringing an expansion team to Oakland have been warned to keep quiet about their interests or risk being crossed off the list of potential buyers? That warning has come to prospective buyers from Oakland officials who say they have tried to get MLB to lift the gag order so that the world can know that there are folks with money who believe in Oakland as an MLB city. Could it be that MLB is worried that a local potential buyer who publicly expresses interest in such a market as Oakland would make Fisher and Manfred look foolish? So obviously, the national nightmare and embarrassment that Rob Manfred and MLB are dealing with right now. And I think they're just complicit. They're letting this happen. They're doing nothing about it. They are completely, amoralistic monsters um, for a pipe dream that doesn't even have a solid solution.
Yeah.
There's no realistic path for this to actually go forward at this point. I find the whole thing to be baffling. Um, and I mean, I guess I shouldn't be. But I'm sitting here kind of surprised that the rest of the 29 other owners and Rob Manfred, the group as a whole, is just letting this all happen. And I
Yeah.
think the Sacramento thing is going to be even more embarrassing than what we're watching happen right now.
This article was in sfchronicle.com, written by Scott Ostler. I was
Thank you.
able to find it. Yeah, they followed the Kroenke playbook, except for I guess to Kroenke's credit, he at least had everything lined up and like and did the transition pretty well for what they did.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, step one, shit all over the city we're in. Okay, step two, really shit all over the city that we're in. And then they kind of forgot to plan after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that act like Manfred acting as if they can't, as if they could get more embarrassed from this thing. Like it's rock bottom. And yeah, I feel for the Oakland fans, feel for the players.
Yeah.
I feel for everybody except for Fisher and all of the owners who are all complicit in this.
Obviously the draft just happened. The A's had a high draft pick. Can you imagine being like, yeah, I can't wait to go play for the
Yeah.
A's who are based in Sacramento who
Yeah, I
don't
guess you're
really have a home?
hoping, like, if you got
Yeah.
drafted this year, you're like, well, hopefully by time I make it, like, they're in a better spot. But
Yeah.
yeah, yikes.
It's not good.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up this episode. We're gonna do a little game that I'm calling "Don't Trade Me, Bro." We're approaching the trade deadline, and I thought it might be fun to revisit some of the trades from the previous years with the
Sure.
St. Louis Cardinals. I want to test your memory to
Okay.
see how much do you remember the trades from the previous handful of years.
Yeah,
Some of
let's do
these
it.
I think are going to be relatively easy. Some of these are very, very difficult. Okay, so looking just back to last year, a very active trade deadline. Who did the Cardinals receive for Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton?
For Jordan Montgomery and Trish Stratton, we talked about one of them already. Thomas Ajacey,
Mm-hmm.
Takoa Roby.
Mm-hmm. There is one
Um,
more.
there's one more. Thomas Ajacey, Takoa Roby. Oh, John King,
You got it. That's
my
all three.
favorite Cardinals bullpen arm.
All right.
I can't believe, man. Huh. Okay.
Yeah. All right. These get harder.
Okay.
Who did the Cardinals receive for Jordan Hicks?
Cardinals received for Jordan Hicks. I believe it was Kloffenstein,
Yes.
Semra Bursay.
That's it. You got it. Is those
Okay.
two. Is
Okay.
Kloffenstein and Simmer Bursey.
All right. All
Very
right.
good. All right. You're at 100%. The hardest one from last year.
Okay.
Who did the Cardinals receive for Paul DeYoung and cash considerations? Our favorite player.
Oh, Paul DeYoung and cash considerations.
I will tell you, I read this name and I thought, who?
I don't even remember a player coming back at all. Went to the Giants, right? Huh. Yeah, I don't even have a hazard of a guess. I'm going to say Joey Bart.
Yeah. Famous St. Louis Cardinal Joey Bart.
Yeah.
No, it was Matt Swanson, who is still at Double A for the
Just bang
Cardinals.
my elbow on Matt Swanson. Okay, yeah, I think I remember that now that you say the name, but that might just be my brain tricking me.
He actually had a pretty good year last year for the Cardinals at Double A. 21 innings pitched, 10.7 K per nine, with a 2.97
All right,
XFIP.
that's not bad.
Um,
Let's go. Yeah,
this year he's at 44 innings, pretty much a total regression. Although his ERA looks good, 3.02. His XFIP is 4.35. So he's just not striking out guys as much.
sure,
But
sure.
it was for Paul DeYoung. All right, that was 2023. Let's go back to 2022. In 2022, Cardinals acquired Jose Quintana and Chris Stratton for which two players?
Jose Quintana and Chris Stratton. That was from the Pirates,
Mm-hmm.
and the Cardinals gave up definitely Johan Oviedo
Correct. That is the one.
and
That's the big.
the squatty right fielder that hit a bunch of bombs. Who had really bad footwork in the box, but was strong and doink dongs all day. Is it Moises Gomez?
No, but it is. Moises Gomez is still a Cardinal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But you're like the name has some very, very similar to Moises Gomez. Would you like me to tell you, or do you want to take another crack at it?
Yeah, tell me. It's not coming up.
Malcolm Nunez.
Malcolm Nunez.
So
Damn.
Moises Gomez, Malcolm
Yeah,
Nunez,
yeah.
very,
Okay.
very similar.
Damn.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to 2021.
Okay.
Who did the Cardinals trade to acquire John Lester?
Oh crap. Oh no, I don't remember that at all. Who did the Cardinals trade to acquire John Lester? Mamma mia. Uh wow. Was it was he a Cub, right? He was a Cub.
No,
No.
no,
No, he was a where did he go? Was he a national? He was a national.
correct.
It wasn't Lane the Train Thomas. No way it wasn't. There's no way it was Lane. I think that happened before that. Also, I don't think he got traded, did he? He just got picked up. Was it? No, it wasn't Juan Yepez. That just happened. Um, who did the Cardinals trade from the Nationals or to the Nationals? Yeah, I don't have anything, so I'll just say Lane the Train Thomas.
That's it. You got
Is
it.
it
It's Lane
really?
Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah, it was Lane
Wow.
Thomas for John Lester. Yep.
The Cardinals lost that trade, I think. That he's been pretty solid for them.
Yeah. However, the counter argument to that is that Lane wasn't really good until last year, and he basically played as a starting outfielder for the Nationals for 2 full years before he was like really good.
Okay. All
So,
right.
And the Cardinals got John
That
Lester.
wasn't going to happen. Yeah.
He was good, and Lane was never going to get that time for the Cardinals. So,
Right.
Right now, if we could just pick up Lane Thomas and put him in the Cardinals, we'd be super happy. But I don't think his career goes that way. So
No.
All right. Maybe the hardest one of the whole list. Which 2 players did the Cardinals trade to acquire J.A. Happ?
J.A. Happ. So I think it was John Gant was one of them.
That's one of them. Yeah.
John Gant, J.A. Happ. It was John Gant, and it was I believe J.A. Happ was a twin.
Correct.
Okay, so they traded John Gant. Shout out John Gant.
Yeah.
He was stressful to watch.
Came from the Jaime Garcia trade to the Braves.
Yeah. John Gant and cannot think of another Cardinal twin player. Wasn't Oscar Mercado? That was to the Indians at the time.
This guy has not he has never played in the majors, though he is still playing professional baseball.
Never. Oh crap! I'm not going to get this then. Yeah. I'm coming up totally empty.
Evan Sisk, now a member of
no way I would ever get.
Yeah, I know it's kind of unfair, but I wanted to. I was honestly kind of surprised you got John Gant. So good job. All right, one last bonus question for you, Ben.
All right.
In the 2011 season, John Mozeliak made his signature trade.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With the Toronto Blue Jays, completely restructuring the team and setting them up for the eventual World Series championship.
Yes.
How many players from either side can you name?
So I know Colby Rasmus went to the Jays.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Octavio Dotel came from the Blue Jays to the Cardinals. I want to say Randy Wynn came.
No, Randy Wynn.
Not Randy. Randy Wynn was not involved in that. Was it Corey Patterson?
Corey Patterson was part of it.
Corey Patterson came back, former Cub legend.
Yep.
Mark Zepchinski?
Yep. Scrabble himself.
Scrabble.
You're missing one piece that came back to the Cardinals, and you're missing 3 other pieces that went to the Blue Jays. Oh, Colby Rasmus obviously was the centerpiece of the trade.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, that might be where my brain taps out. That's all I can remember.
Okay. So the guys you missed, the Cardinals traded away Trevor Miller, Colby Rasmus, Brian Tallett, and PJ Walters for...
Don't remember those guys.
Octavio Dotel, Edwin Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Famous for playing for basically every single team in baseball.
Yep.
Corey Patterson and Mark Zepchinski.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Hey, I got Corey Patterson. I think that's...
You did.
I impressed myself a little bit on
I'm surprised you got really... Actually, Edwin Jackson was the one I thought you would get, and maybe not anyone else. So overall, you did really well. It's hard to remember these little bit pieces in these trades. So nice work. That was Don't Trade Me, Bro. We'll see what this year's trade deadline looks like. And that's going to do it for this episode of Talking About Birds. Should be a fun week. We'll be back next week to break down whatever trades do or do not happen. Hopefully, we have some fun stuff to talk about. And don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. And I think that's going to do it. So thanks, everybody. And until next week,
give me Blake Snell, Mo. Come on.
I'm a little birdie, little dirt bath.
Ew. But it's cute.
I'm gonna give you a dirt bath.
Ugh.
Is that intimidating?
No. It was weird.
What do people? Isn't there a thing that's like that though? Like, I'm gonna introduce you to the dirt.
Yes, that is a thing. All right, let's move on.
All right, here we go.